Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. I found I had less and less to say, until finally, I became silent, and began to listen. I discovered in the silence, the voice of God. It is better to try something and fail than to try nothing and succeed. The result may be the same, but you won't be. We always grow more through defeats than victories. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom used. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. People settle for a level of despair they can tolerate and call it happiness. Take a chance and you may lose. Take not a chance and you have lost already. The Bible is very easy to understand. But we Christians are a bunch of scheming swindlers. We pretend to be unable to understand it, because we know very well that the minute we understand, we are obliged to act accordingly. The unhappy person is never present to themselves because they always live in the past or the future. But he who cannot reveal himself cannot love, and he who cannot love is the most unhappy man of all. It is so hard to believe because it is so hard to obey. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. A good decision is our will to do everything we can, within our power. It means to serve God with all we've got, be it little or much. Every person can do that. Hope is a passion for the possible. In order to help another effectively, I must understand what he understands. If I do not know that, my greatest understanding will be of no help to him. God creates everything out of nothing. And everything which God is to use, he first reduces to nothing. It is not the path which is difficulty, rather, it is the difficulty which is the path. A man prayed, and at first he thought that prayer was talking. But he became more and more quiet, until in the end, he realized prayer is listening. For without risk there is no faith, and the greater the risk, the greater the faith. And this is the simple truth, that to live is to feel oneself lost. He who accepts it has already begun to find himself, to be on firm ground. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. To be a woman is something so strange, so confusing and so complicated, that only a woman could put up with it. Love is the expression of the one who loves, not of the one who is loved. Those who think they can love only the people they prefer, do not love at all. Patience is necessary, and one cannot reap immediately where one has sown. The most terrible fight is not when there is one opinion against another. The most terrible fight is when two men say the same thing, and fight about the interpretation, and this interpretation involves a difference of quality. Most men pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that they hurry past it. Never cease loving a person, and never give up hope for him, for even the prodigal son who had fallen most low, could still be saved. Man's essential idea is spirit, and we must not allow ourselves to be put off by the fact that he is also able to walk on two legs. Philosophy is perfectly right in saying that life must be understood backward. But then one forgets the other clause, that it must be lived forward. Faith is the highest passion in a human being. Many in every generation may not come that far, but none comes further. To stand on one leg and prove God's existence is a very different thing from going on one's knees and thanking Him. Christ has not only spoken to us by His life, but has also spoken for us by His death. To cheat oneself out of love is the most terrible deception. It is an eternal loss for which there is no reparation, either in time or in eternity. A man, who is a physical being, is always turned toward the outside, thinking that his happiness lies outside him, finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within him. If anyone on the verge of action should judge himself according to the outcome, he would never begin. The truth is lived before it is understood. It must be fought for, tested, and appropriated. The more people who believe something, the more apt is to be wrong. The person who's right often has to stand alone. Our life always expresses the result of our dominant thoughts. Whoever has learned to be anxious in the right way, has learned the ultimate. It is better to get lost in the passion than to lose passion. Life has its own hidden forces which you can only discover by living. For it is not what happens to me that makes me great, but it is what I do. If you don't have many friends, that means you have a lot of life experience. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. It seems essential, in relationships and all tasks, that we concentrate only on what is most significant and important. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but if one will, are to be lived. The God that can be named is not God. Prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays. It is very important in life to know when your cue comes. A road well begun is the battle half won. The important thing is to make a beginning and get underway. Knowledge is a wealth that cannot be stolen. Once you label me, you negate me. A fool is known by his speech, and a wise man by silence.